Hey everyone. So today we have Mercury and Uranus are conjunct in Taurus. And it's a part of an interesting process because whenever we have anything involving Uranus, there's always an element of surprise. Like right now, Michelle just walked in and she's going to actually share some insight with us on this very topic, and she doesn't even know what this topic is. And the point is, we have our ideas, our thoughts, our conditioning expectations of what life is going to do. When we work with, Mercury in general, corresponds to how we're intellectually organizing our reality in our mind. So we create these linear boxes that allows one thought or one concept, one idea, to connect to a foundation of other thoughts that then expands upon our understanding of how everything's kind of working and operating together. So Mercury's linear left brain, short-term memory, direct, tangible concepts that we can apply and work with and communicate and add to and kind of play around with. Whereas Uranus, a lot of people call Uranus the higher octave of Mercury. Uranus it's not the right brain, but it's not the left brain. It's the higher mind. It's the actual reality of creation as it is an expression of projected intelligence from source. So it's the grid, the framework, the network of consciousness that is inherent to creation. It's the archetypes of reality. And these archetypes exist prior to the manifestations in the particulars of the 10,000 things of creation. So we give things names, we classify things, we create an organization for things, but the stars don't call themselves stars. The constellations don't call themselves constellations. Everything in life is exactly what it is as it is created to be prior to our understanding, our interpretation, our story of them. So whenever we're in a big Uranian type of transit, so we have Mercury-Uranus today, Mercury's going to pass Uranus, and in general, we're in a pretty Uranian time. Saturn stationing retrograde, like pretty much right now over the next couple weeks in Aquarius squaring Uranus. So when we see Uranus being activated, we have the interface between how our minds are conditioned, what we expect, and what we expect really just reflects the wiring in our brain. The formation of dendrites, and the formation of the neurotransmitters, that reflect the routes that we're familiar with and the way that we're wired and what we've habituated in our consciousness.
Deep roots.
And then your reality isn't conditioned. There are no set paths. There are no groves in the record in the brain of reality. So it's free of all story. It's free from conditioning. That whole process, right? We do so many scientific experiments, or there have been many scientific experiments where you expose a rat to something, and while you expose them to that scent or to that food, you stimulate the environment with a shock or with a sound. And eventually, they begin to associate this physical food sensory experience with this particular sound or vibration, so that whenever they smell it, they're going to expect that they'll be shocked or whatever it might be. The human brain works that way. The conditioned mind works that way because it's making associations. And so we're not consciously thinking, Mercury, oh, this logically means this. It's built into our program that we're going to experience with the 10,000 things of reality, all kinds of projections and expectations as to what's happening because our minds have been conditioned to expect that. When we're unconditioned, we don't have any expectations, and it's the starting point to begin to observe things as they actually are. So when we start to engage our reality just with a little bit of curiosity, an openness to observe instead of react, instead of operating and moving from the ways of thinking that we're familiar with, it creates an opening for life to reveal something that to us is new, but to life is not new, because Uranus has nothing to do with new. Uranus has nothing to do with innovation, with change, with anything of that nature. It only seems that way to our minds. And as we let go of the expectations in our thinking, what is begins to reveal itself through the filter of whatever we're really allowing ourselves to see. Do you have anything to share about this, Michelle?
It's funny. I wasn't expecting this. I was just going to go for a run.
Oh, you haven't run yet? Okay.
I haven't, no. But I woke up this morning, actually, really interestingly, with the question that was reflecting on my, normal habit patterns of my daily life. What thing or what movement is ready for a revolution, a disruption, a change in my way of relating to it? And that's literally what I woke up this morning thinking about. Like, how is it that we just go through the motions of life every day, and often, external circumstances are what are initiating change for us. Something happens to us that then we have to surrender to the change of that thing. But what if I were actually leaning into my life with the opening of consciousness to actually disrupt the patterns that I'd naturally or more comfortably lean into? And so I don't have any answers yet. I just started this morning with that question, but yeah.
And, just with that, I'm researching something for a talk that I'm going to be giving, and I keep on falling into this pattern of how I'm used to talking about this particular topic. And it's just that, there's that openness to see it differently, to think of it differently. And they say when you change your environment, you change your mind, you change your circumstances. I just moved my whole room around, and I'm going to go on a long drive today. So there's just something about breaking up the neural pathways that we're familiar with and not needing to force new thoughts, new ways of thinking, new ways of seeing. It happens on its own, actually, when we're not trying.
That reminds me of the collective trauma pattern that we have been in, especially around change as a human collective. There's something very healing that can happen when we are willing to actually slow down and reorient to our environment in a different way that allows us to experience the same place in a more whole and congruent manner. I guess the way I think about it is if you've had a traumatic experience in a particular place, then every time you drive to that place, consciously or unconsciously, the mind is being reminded of the trauma. And it takes a lot of reworking and rewiring the brain in order to reorient to that place from a fresh perspective, one where the trauma is not embedded in the memory of that particular place.
Beautiful. It's actually such a big part of working with Uranus. Most of what we're experiencing are the projections that we're extending out into reality, emanating from unresolved trauma. And there's just something about being able to recognize, I'm experiencing anxiety, I'm experiencing fear, I'm experiencing projections of an unfriendly reality. By the way, Uranus is friendliness. And so also unfriendliness is sort of the other side of Uranus, the fear of that. And just noticing that doesn't mean we're going to be able to immediately kind of clear it and see what's here, but just noticing it and having some level of clarity that allows us to recognize, okay, this is coming from thought. This is coming from thought. And there's something about that as a starting point.
Yeah. And Uranus, I find, relates to nervous system deregulation. So the higher octave of that would be that we collectively learn how to self-regulate, how to co-regulate with others, and thus healing occurs through contact, through awareness, through being able to perceive reality as it is. So when you're having anxiety, it's easy because there's this anxious feeling in my body to then perceive reality as being threatening, when the reality is that nothing is actually happening, but your body is having a response. And as I had years of periods with intense anxiety, I learned to be more aware of what was actually happening, and thus not reacting to my anxiety and not perpetuating the story which might want to attach itself to the anxiety, to the anxiousness, that actually I was safe and that I was here. And more I started to feel as though my anxiety would dissipate in a faster way and then go years without having anxiety at all. So anyways, I am going to go for a run now. But thanks for letting me join you.
Sure, thank you for sharing. Yeah.